Sky ice and the black sun. Most discussions about the black sun actually stop at the symbolism or hidden energy. But in this video, we're going to be going much further by exploring a question that very few people have attempted to answer, which is, could the black sun itself be the mechanism that is responsible for generating the sky ice and the crystalline firmament through a continuous process of energetic transformation, which why we see that hazel blue mysterious sky ice that everybody talks about. Rather than treating the black sun, the ether, the toroidal field, free energy, and the firmament as separate mysteries, we are going to examine the possibility that they are all successive expressions of the same underlying energetic process that I've mentioned before. They're all the same thing from different perspectives. Now, if this framework holds legit and merit, then the crystalline vault above us may not simply just be a filtering boundary. It may represent the final phase of a continuous, ongoing chemical transitioning where a primordial energetic substrate progressively condenses into the oxygenic architecture of the heavens themselves and manifesting and explaining why we see that rare hazel blue sky-colored ice in Antarctica. Every civilization has searched for the hidden principle from which all things emerge. Some call it the ether, others call it the prima materia, the primum mobile, the unmoved mover, the logos, the astrologos, or the spirit moving upon the waters. But what if these names all describe the same recursive phenomena, viewed through different intellectual traditions? Again, in this exploration, we are going to investigate a single underlying unifying proposition that the black sun, the dielectric ether, the toroidal field, free energy, and the crystalline firmament are not independent realities, but they are recursive phase expressions of the same one continuous field. Through progressive energetic transformation, the unseen becomes the magnetic becomes the luminous, and the luminous becomes oxygenic, ultimately condensing into the oxygenic crystalline architecture that forms the boundary between the visible and the invisible worlds that we call layers of the firmament. Now, in the beginning, as we know, there exists the primordial non-local field, the infinite dielectric ether, the Ein Sof, the monad, the hidden and motionless source from which all manifestation emerges. I've done a video on that. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, where I connect dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity. At the center of the cosmology that we live in, there is the black sun, not as a distant object in outer space, but as the singular central vortex, which is the unmoved mover underlying all energetic phenomena. This hidden source is the eternal dielectric origin point from which polarity, magnetism, light, motion, and electrification all emanate outward through the toroidal architecture of the cosmos. Rather than a universe governed by gravitational attraction, this framework interprets motion and structure through electrostatic induction, field pressure, dielectric acceleration, and magnetism. All celestial motion unfolds through toroidal circulation, an energetic reciprocal motion centered upon the dielectric axis. Energy rises from the hidden source beneath the terrestrial plane, traveling upward through the field layers toward the apex at Polaris. The energetic currents undergo refraction, birefringence, reflection, interference, and redistribution before manifesting back downward into the visible world as luminous structure, motion, and form. The visible cosmos, therefore, operates as a holographic energetic projection generated through the interaction of, again, dielectricity, magnetism, and electrification. Dielectricity corresponds to the hidden black light, the inward, centripetal, and potential aspect of the field, while magnetism corresponds to the polarizing white light representing the outward radiating centrifugal organizing principle that is responsible for polarity, coherence, and motion. And together, these field modalities, their interaction through abrasion produces electrification and the visible luminous spectrum experienced as what we call manifested reality. Space is not an empty vacuum, but it's an ethereal medium structured through dynamic field relationships and harmonic interference patterns. What is commonly interpreted as gravity is instead the result of dielectric convergence, electrostatic induction, magnetic attraction, pressure gradients, and centripetal acceleration toward energetic equilibrium. Motion arises not from mass bending space-time, but from organizing energetic flows that are circulating through the toroidal field geometry of the cosmos itself, coming from the black sun. So we have what we call an aetheronic gamma flux of the oxygenic crystallization of the firmament. The black sun, which is a hyperdimensional implosive singularity of ethereal flux, where unmanifested energy condenses into the structural framework of space and matter, the black sun's emissions are not conventional photons, but they are what we could call superluminal, ultra-high frequency aetherons, etherionic pulses, the prime materia of all radiated force. When these aetherons undergo harmonic downgrading through nested magnetic vortices, they manifest within the measurable electromagnetic spectrum as gamma radiation, the highest known photon energy state. Gamma rays emerging from this implosive core are structurally transformative. Aetheronic gamma rays carry a pre-encoded spin and magnetic vector orientation dictated by the centrifugal centripetal implosion geometry of the black sun's vortex motions. These gamma emissions, they are not random, but they are phase coherent, meaning that their frequency maintains structural integrity across different scales, allowing them to directly alter oxygen's molecular states upon interaction with each other. So the aetheronic central torus energy is mixing and interacting with the atmospheric oxygen molecular energy, if that makes sense. When these high-frequency aetherons descend through Earth's central axial vortex, the invisible energy connecting counterspace to our extended spatial domain of the world that we live in, they undergo progressive modulations, magnetic phase transitions, and this process reduces their frequency while maintaining their coherent spin, enabling them to interact with the atmospheric constituents. Oxygen, due to its diatomic stability and unpaired electron spins, becomes the primary resonator for these aetheronic frequencies. This allows oxygen to change into different states. So we have what's called the transitioning from gamma flux to the oxygenic phases. Number one is the aetheron gamma impact. As the gamma flux from the black sun penetrates the ionosphere and enters the mesosphere, the thermosphere, etc., its energy perturbs the electron spin states in diatomic oxygen molecules, inducing temporary magnetic alignments. Number two, paramagnetic alignment. Under the influence of Earth's toroidal magnetic field, these oxygen molecules begin to align their spin parallel to the aetheron imprinted magnetic vector, causing a paramagnetic reaction. Number three, cryogenic energy extraction. A portion of the gamma flux energy is absorbed and re-radiated as long-wave vibrational modes, effectively lowering the kinetic temperature of localized atmospheric oxygen and facilitating a phase shift toward liquefaction. Number 4, liquid oxygen formation. In the upper atmospheric regions near the firmament interface, where thermal equilibrium is radically different from surface conditions, oxygen condenses into paramagnetic liquid states, suspended in the magnetic gradient of the toroidal field. Number 5, solid oxygen crystallization. Continued energy extraction from the high-frequency aetherons into the dielectric medium allows portions of the liquid oxygen to transition into anti-ferromagnetic solid oxygen lattices, forming the stable crystalline component of the firmament. Now, an intriguing property of elemental oxygen is that it transitions into a solid at approximately negative 361.8 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 218.8 degrees Celsius. Under conventional chemistry, this phase change occurs only under extremely low temperatures, producing crystalline forms of solid oxygen with unique magnetic properties. Temperature alone may not be the only mechanism capable of driving this transformation. If the superluminal aetheronic flux emerging from the black sun continually extracts, redistributes, and reorganizes energy as it propagates through the toroidal field, then the upper atmospheric boundary could represent an environment where oxygen is induced into highly ordered condensed phases through a combination of magnetic coherence, dielectric field organization, and energetic phase transitions. Rather than freezing solely through thermal cooling, oxygen is hypothesized to undergo a field-mediated crystallization, organizing into the paramagnetic liquid oxygen and ultimately into anti-ferromagnetic solid oxygen. In this model, the crystalline firmament is envisioned as the terminal phase of that continuous process, a self-organizing oxygenic lattice formed where the primordial energetic continuum reaches its highest degree of structural order. The Earth's toroidal magnetic field acts as the container and the structural guide for this oxygenic phase assembly. Centripetal convergence at the polar apex draws the paramagnetic and the anti-ferromagnetic layers into a nested dome structure, while the centrifugal divergence along the equatorial plane maintains the radial stability. And this dual action field dynamic sustains the sky ice dome as a self-repairing crystalline membrane. And in this model, the firmament is not a static shell, but it's a dynamically regenerated toroidal interface, perpetually renewed by the downward flow of the aetheron charged gamma flux from the black sun energy. And the resulting boundary is both optically active, refracting and bifurcating incoming cosmic light into the prismatic phenomena observed from Earth, and it's magnetically resonant, forming the catacaustic loom that maps the flat Earth below. Nature continually demonstrates that matter is not fixed, but it exists as a continuum of phase transitions governed by energy, pressure, and environmental conditions. A solid may undergo the chemical reaction that's called sublimation, causing it to sublime directly into a gas without ever becoming a liquid. For example, many people have seen before, like just as dry ice, which is solid carbon dioxide, CO2, transitions directly into carbon dioxide gas under certain atmospheric conditions. And likewise, when carbon dioxide dissolves into water, H2O, a portion of it temporarily combines to form carbonic acid, which is H2CO3. And its complementary process is deposition, in which carbon dioxide water vapor loses sufficient energy to bypass the liquid phase entirely and crystallize directly into a solid, producing frost-like structures, illustrating how subtle changes in energetic and chemical conditions can produce entirely new molecular behaviors while the constituent elements themselves still remain the same. Within the theoretical framework presented here, these familiar transformations serve as analogies for a broader, larger cosmic principle, the possibility that elemental oxygen, under extraordinary magnetic, dielectric, and energetic conditions, could likewise undergo successive phase transitions, expressing itself as gaseous, liquid, and crystalline states simultaneously while still remaining fundamentally the same element. These processes, governed by the surrounding energetic environment, temperature, pressure, and molecular interactions, and the exchange of energy within the medium, the firmament therefore is not envisioned as a substance created from nothing, but it's an organized phase expression of oxygen responding to an underlying energetic field. Oxygen becomes the principal resonant element because of its unique electronic configuration and paramagnetic behavior, allowing it to respond more readily than neighboring atmospheric gases to the organizing influence of the toroidal magnetic field. So the oxygen-rich upper atmosphere is theorized to experience a continual extraction and redistribution of energy by the descending aetheronic flux. As the local energetic conditions cross successive stability thresholds, gaseous oxygen is proposed to organize directly into magnetically ordered condensed phases. One portion forms a paramagnetic liquid layer capable of responding dynamically to the surrounding magnetic field, while continued ordering gives rise to the crystalline oxygen phases that are exhibiting anti-ferromagnetic arrangements. In this hypothesis, the transition is driven not solely by thermal cooling, but by increasing magnetic coherence and dielectric ordering within the field itself. The firmament is therefore envisioned as a continuously regenerated deposition process rather than a permanently fixed shell. At any moment, the superluminal energetic flux coming from the black sun is proposed to undergo progressive condensation from an unseen dielectric continuum to an organized gaseous atmosphere and finally into a crystalline oxygenic membrane. Just as frost continually forms where atmospheric conditions favor deposition, the firmament is imagined as a self-renewing interface where energetic potential is continuously translated into ordered material structure. The sky ice is not regarded as inert frozen matter, but as the terminal phase of an ongoing field-induced crystallization process that maintains the boundary between the hidden dielectric realm and the visible atmospheric world. And so the black sun, the toroidal field, the dielectric continuum, and the firmament are therefore interpreted not as separate entities once again, but as successive expressions of a single continuous process. The hidden source emits the primordial energetic substrate. The toroidal field organizes its propagation. The atmosphere provides the medium through which energetic condensation occurs, and the crystalline firmament represents the highest degree of structural ordering achieved by that continuous transformation. And in this way, the heavens are conceived not as a static object suspended above Earth, but as a living phase boundary that is perpetually forming through the ongoing organization of energy into matter. If ordinary familiar substances can undergo profound transformations through changes in energy, temperature, pressure, and molecular interactions, then in this theoretical framework, it asks a broader question. Could there exist a primordial energetic state whose composition is unlike any conventional form of matter, yet still serves as the precursor from which recognizable elements can emerge from? The black sun, therefore, is proposed as the origin of the superluminal aetheronic plasma, a primordial field whose chemical composition is unknown because it is hypothesized to exist prior to the ordinary atomic structures recognized by modern chemistry. And so, rather than consisting of familiar molecules or familiar ions, the black sun energy represents an undifferentiated energetic substrate that progressively reorganizes as it propagates through the toroidal field layers. And as its energetic density, frequency, and magnetic ordering change, the plasma is theorized to undergo successive phase transitions, once again, eventually giving rise to increasingly recognizable forms of matter. And in this interpretation, the firmament is not viewed as a structure assembled from a pre-existing material, but as the culmination of a continuous energetic condensation process or deposition process. The primordial aetheronic plasma is proposed to transition into magnetically responsive atmospheric constituents, with elemental oxygen occupying a central role in this process because of its unique electronic configuration and paramagnetic properties. As energetic conditions continue to evolve within the model, oxygen is hypothesized to organize into paramagnetic liquid phases, anti-ferromagnetic crystalline phases, and associated interactions with other atmospheric gases, producing a layered magneto-dielectric boundary. The firmament, therefore, represents the visible expression of an invisible continuum, a gradual transition from a primordial energetic state into an ordered, chemically differentiated, and structurally coherent field that bridges the unseen dielectric origin with the observable atmosphere. And the firmament itself, the crystalline boundary traditionally imagined as a dome, is in fact a stratified shell composed of paramagnetic liquid oxygen and anti-ferromagnetic solid oxygen. And this boundary, far from being symbolic, forms a real luminous membrane living within the toroidal field structure of the Earth, suspended between counter space and extended space. And compositionally real phenomena structured by the interaction of exotic states of elemental oxygen proposes this presentation. Specifically, the field envelope or the interface between counter space and extended space is composed of two distinctive magnetic phases of oxygen: paramagnetic liquid oxygen and anti-ferromagnetic solid oxygen. And these two states, when juxtaposed within a dielectric framework, create a resonant crystalline membrane. So paramagnetic liquid oxygen possesses a unique magnetic signature. More importantly, it aligns temporarily with those fields when it's exposed to them. Its paramagnetism arises from the unpaired electrons in its molecular structure, which allows it to behave almost like a fluidic magnetic lens. Suspended within the toroidal currents of Earth's magneto-dielectric field, this liquid layer acts as a dynamic, semi-permeable conduit for ethereal energy. It is highly responsive to flux variations, pressure gradients, and torsional wave inputs from the black sun's axial discharge. As such, it does not passively sit in place. It breathes in resonance with the universal pulse. It fluctuates, adjusting its permeability and refractive qualities in relation to changes in energy, density, and frequency. Above and below this liquid boundary, a more stable and rigid formation exists, the anti-ferromagnetic solid oxygen. Unlike ferromagnetic materials that reinforce an external field, anti-ferromagnetic materials internally cancel out magnetic moments due to opposing spin alignments. This means that the solid layer of oxygen resists magnetic alignment, creating a sort of inertial buffer zone, a magnetic counterbalance that serves as a stabilizing architecture within the field. Its presence provides structure and crystallinity to the otherwise fluidic behavior of the paramagnetic layer, essentially forming a scaffolding for the toroidal field's containment. And together, these two oxygenic phases create a magnetic dielectric lattice that is finely tuned to respond to the high-frequency torsional light emitted by the black sun. And this lattice acts as a resonant field boundary, regulating the harmonic threshold through which the aether condenses into light, geometry, and material vibration. And so, in a sense, the paramagnetic and anti-ferromagnetic phases function like the yin and yang of the cosmic membrane, one dynamic and one receptive, the other stabilizing and the one is regulatory. The coupling provides the conditions necessary for coherent field structuring across different scales, ensuring that the toroidal vortex does not collapse or dissipate, but maintains phase continuity and equilibrium across the firmament boundary. So within this framework, the remarkable blue crystalline ice observed throughout Antarctica may represent more than ordinary frozen water. It could instead mark the visible outer expression of the oxygenic crystallization process occurring where the toroidal field reaches its greatest structural coherence. If the firmament membrane is continually regenerated through successive energetic phase transitions originating from the black sun, then it would be reasonable to expect regions nearest to the boundary to exhibit the highest degree of crystalline ordering. The distinctive blue appearance of the so-called sky ice may therefore reflect not merely optical properties, but an exceptionally ordered magnetic dielectric lattice formed under conditions that is unlike those found anywhere else on Earth. If such a process exists, the resulting material would not necessarily constitute a new element, but it could represent a highly unusual phase of matter progressing unique chemical, magnetic, and crystallographic organization beyond what is ordinarily encountered under terrestrial conditions. Rather than fitting neatly within conventional classifications, this hypothetical crystalline interface would embody the culmination of a continuous energetic transformation, where the primordial dielectric continuum, organized through the toroidal field, ultimately condenses into the luminous oxygenic architecture traditionally described as the firmament. Whether this proposition proves correct or not, it invites us to reconsider the possibility that the heavens above are not empty space, but a living membrane boundary where energy, chemistry, magnetism, and geometry converge into one coherent system. So, once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me in this presentation. The purpose of this is not to declare certainty, but to investigate how concepts from chemistry, magnetism, atmospheric physics, and cosmological speculation might be woven into a single unifying framework.